All right, guys, here we go. So Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti, the Big Ten and the SEC are forming an advisory board. This was announced just a couple of days ago, and there's implications for this. I mean, Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, I'm sure that Nick Saban is involved as well in this. The SEC and the Big Ten, specifically football, they're going to try to get together and figure out how to proceed with college sports. But this pretty much shows you that the ACC, the Big 12, they're out of it. They're done being a Power 5 conference. And in 2024, the playoff is going to change, and ESPN and Fox Sports are pretty much running TV money and the money generated from watching football, the billions of dollars. The people, the executives who run television, they are controlling college football. They are controlling the sport, all right? And the organization of college football makes a ton of money, but now the sport is going to look unrecognizable in several years, and I'm still going to probably watch, but there are parts of it that I'm going to miss. I'm going to miss the regional rivalries, but the regional rivalries did not add up to the amount of money that is going to be made for these universities and these people. But as a college football fan, I'm not telling these people to starve, and they're not going to starve, but I want regional rivalries. As a fan, I don't care how much money the universities or how much television revenue is happening, and neither should you guys. You guys should care about the rivalries and the holistic part of the sport, okay? So as a fan, I honestly care about good football, and I care about the rivalries, and I care about the sport being competitive. And the Pac-12 is now dead, so now you have the Big 12. And for me, I look at the Big 12 as kind of the last standing conference that can actually do something, because the Big 12 was in the same shoes as the Pac-12. The Big 12 was going to die, all right? The Big 12 was losing Texas and Oklahoma, and instead of the Pac-12, the Big 12 went out there, they got Arizona State, they got BYU, they get Arizona. They go get Cincinnati. They dive into the Florida market. Brett Yormark, a guy who worked with NASCAR, a guy who worked with NBA basketball also. This is somebody that is forward-thinking. Unlike the ACC commissioners, the ACC didn't really do anything. They're just reactive. The Big 12 is proactive. If I'm the Big 12, and now the battle lines are officially drawn. Now the battle lines are the SEC and the Big Ten. It's these guys are collaborating and getting together and thinking that they know what's best for the sport. It's not an official alliance. But it's a partnership and a collaboration that the Big 12 and the ACC, were not allowed. But if I were the Big 12, I would probably not want to go make my bet with the ACC. I think the ACC is going to hold you back. The Big 12, they have the power now in this process to start doing things individually. And if I were the Big 12, I would be proactive, and this is what I would do. Now, the money that the conference earns, I would start giving players a portion of that contract, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen in 6 months. It's going to happen in a year. But if you start paying your players in the Big 12, because we all know that the SEC and the AC and the Big 10, they're going to start paying their players. But if you pretty much take the first step towards paying the players, then guess what's going to happen? Your recruiting is going to get better. You have Colorado, you have Texas Tech, you have Baylor. You still have some wealthy schools like Arizona State can get wealthier. You need to start competing in recruiting with the SEC and the Big Ten. If you're going to be a Power 3, you got to start playing good football. And the way to do it is you can be the first conference to start paying the players. So you want to be innovative. You want to have games in Mexico and all of this. you start paying the players based off of television revenue, and you take the fight to the SEC and the Big Ten, and you be proactive. So the players get a cut of the revenue, because that's what's going to happen. The players are going to get a cut of the revenue, and Rick Pitino laid it out really well, that the NCAA has no leg to stand on when it comes to, paying the players, because the rules are always changing, and when you go in court, the NCAA isn't going to be taking any more W's. So the players are going to get a chunk of the revenue. The bowl games are eventually going to be paying the players to play in it. And we're going to see the players play in it, which is good. All we want to see, or all I want, are the players to enjoy college football and pretty much play in it. And I want to see competition. So the Big 12, the great thing about the Big 12 is that I would operate as if the Big 12 were just a single entity. Now, the tough part is that ESPN is baked into the Big 12, and ESPN and Fox Sports, where the Big 12 made a television deal, they are obviously proponents of the SEC and the Big 10. But what is going to happen eventually is the athletes are eventually going to make revenue shares from television dollars. That is eventually what is going to happen, okay? Because the universities and everybody is making $1 billion off of it, so the athletes are eventually going to make revenue share. Now, that's not where the Alabamas and Texas A&Ms are going to separate from Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. The point is that, you're still going to have Mississippi State players making the exact same as Alabama and LSU players when Alabama and LSU are better. But that's where NIL could come in and can continue to bolster. And that's where the free market can come in and the better teams will still be better, which I don't mind. That's been going on forever. The NIL and the boosters paying the players, I really couldn't care less about that. What I do care about is the Big 12 and the ACC being irrelevant as you-know-what. I care about the Big 12 and ACC teams being completely relegated, completely turned to the side. I care about, Oregon State, Washington State, and pretty much Cal, Stanford. I mean, these football programs are going to die out. They're going to be irrelevant as heck. They're going to be like Group of Five. That is what is worth noting about. Not whether these athletes are getting paid. This is all my opinion. Maybe you guys have objections to the athletes getting paid, and okay, that's your prerogative to feel however you feel about that, being a college football fan. But these other conferences being relegated to absolute meaningless football, that is the real story of this. So you look at the recruiting rankings in the top 25, about 80 to 85%, other than Florida State and Clemson, of the top 25 teams in the team rankings, they're all SEC and Big Ten. Oregon's now in the Big Ten Conference. Ohio State is rolling. You still have Michigan and Penn State. Television dollars are flowing in to the Big Ten conferences. They're going to have a bigger pool of NIL. They're going to be able to pay coaches more money. The assistant coaches are going to be better. The only chance the Big 12 has is if it gets innovative with paying players. Because if you pay players, then there's going to be high school recruits and transfers that are then going to go to Big 12 schools that are then going to pick a Baylor over a Mississippi State, that are then going to pick Texas Tech over Arkansas. If you have an innovative plan to pay the players, the Big 12 needs more talented football players. Because guess what the public's going to be watching? They're going to be watching guys that are NFL talent. And when they see in the NFL draft, when they tune into the draft and they see really good football being played in the Big 12, they're going to watch it. When there's talented rosters in the Big 12, that's the only thing that is going to help out the Big 12 conference. Right now, the only thing that is helping out the ACC is that they have Clemson and Florida State. And eventually, Florida State is going to leave the ACC. It's just a matter of time before that, ESPN bill, that the ACC made an agreement with ESPN. ESPN has the power to just absolutely unleash Florida State. But now the battle lines have been drawn. It's not an official alliance. It's not like the conferences are merging together, the Big Ten and the SEC. All right, they're going to try to come up with a plan, Greg Sankey and Petitti, to quote-unquote save college football. And they're going to come up and they're going to be making all the rules, and it's going to flow downstream from there. But the Big 12's the one revolutionary force that can kind of save its own ass from pretty much having to be the subservience to the SEC and the Big Ten Conference. So it pretty much is going to be a super conference. It's pretty much going to be a two-team sort of deal. It hasn't been officially said that way, but the battle lines have now officially been drawn in college sports. So it's officially what is going to end up happening is the SEC and the Big Ten and their new playoff is pretty much going to reward the big dogs, the SEC and the Big Ten Conference. But pretty much conference races, conference championships mean nothing now. Pretty much the sacredness of the regular season pretty much means nothing. The regionality of the sport, the rivalries are all going to be lost in the shuffle. I mean, it used to be fun to debate whether football was played better on the Pac-12 or whether football was played better in the SEC. That used to be really fun. All right. The Big Ten used to have the style of ground and pound football, and the Pac-12 used to be an air it out style. And it would be a difference of styles, and these teams would play each other full tilt in bowl games to decipher who was going to be the best teams that were out there. That has completely been lost for college sports. Conference expansion has killed college football. The television money and the university greed in taking that money has killed it. And pretty much all these presidents and all these university presidents have gone along, and they don't know how college football has been. They didn't grow up being a fan of college football for the last 20 or 30 years. Now, somebody like Nick Saban can maybe, represent a little bit of college football, but everybody's kind of going to be coming at it from its own personal perspective. All right, if you're Nick Saban, you want the SEC to be powerful. You don't care about the ACC. You're not going to care about the Big 12. So everybody's fending for their own, which is okay. All right, but the Big 12 better be proactive in fighting it, or they're going to get left behind in this process. It's going to take about 3 years to pretty much come up with rules for college football. A little bit of trial and error. But right now is going to be a turbulent time for the next couple of years. It's kind of like why some coaches like Tommy Rees are smart to go to the NFL and to kind of watch the SEC Big Ten and to kind of watch what decisions get made between the SEC Big Ten and the television. All right, ESPN, Disney, Fox Sports, Fox. Now, what is going to happen in this process is the Big 12 is still beholden now to the televisions in the process. So everything is going to flow downstream, and we're going to see. All right? I'm not involved in college sports. We're just going to see what happens. But this was a huge step towards kind of seeing how college sports is going to revolve between Tony Petitti and between Greg Sankey. And Greg Sankey is pretty much going to be running college football with Tony Petitti. They're going to be running college sports. And that is essentially what is going to happen.